marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa, call 205-345-7200 or click on Advertise with Us on our website.
Live from the heart of SEC country, this is your daily fix of grit, guts, and gridiron glory. Welcome to the Deep South College Football Show.
Bowen, here it goes! Georgia retakes the lead!
Breaking down the biggest matchups, the boldest takes, and the deepest rivalries in college football on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Intercepted! They confused him! Xavier Brown headed the other way! Touchdown Tide!
From Fayetteville to Gainesville, from the Grove to Toomer's Corner, it's SEC football.
Chandler delivers! Touchdown!
Now, here's your award-winning host, Wyatt Fulton.
Welcome into the Deep South College Football Show right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Got a fun show for you guys today. We're going to talk a little bit about playoff expansion. Why? Because more conferences have come out in support of the college football playoff expansion. If you've been keeping up with the ACC spring meetings here today or this week for the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, or as we like to call it, the All-Coastal Conference now, because Stanford and Cal are not on the Atlantic Coast, and yet they're in the ACCs. And SMU isn't even on a coast, and they're somehow in the ACC at this point. So, but the ACC and the Big 12, they have come out in support of a 2014 college football playoff, kind of joining what the SEC and the Big 10 have been proposing, I guess. Jackson hanging out with us in the studio here. Jackson, have we gotten an official announcement that the SEC is in support of the 2014 playoff?
I do not believe that we have. I don't think we have. Well, I know most of the coaches are not in support of the 2014 model. I know, right. I don't know if you saw Kirby Smart sit down one-on-one with Josh Pate, but in that interview, he said he's not a fan of 16 or 24, but he's pro more than 12, so that's probably 14.
Yeah, I would assume that Kirby Smart would be pro 14-team playoff if he's not a proponent of 16 or 24 here. Mario Cristobal did an interview as well. He said, hey, I'm not for a 2014 playoff. He also is against the automatic qualifiers, which I wholeheartedly align with Mario Cristobal. And by the way, his conference has come out today in support of a 2014 college football playoff. You look at it here, Commissioner Brett Yormark of the Big 12 and Jim Phillips of the ACC are supporting a 2014 playoff model here. So looking at it here, Jackson, it kind of seems like 2014 playoff is inevitable. If it was the Big 10's idea, now the ACC and the Big 12 are supporting it. I mean, you've got three of the four that are all for it.
Of course, those two conferences are in support of it. I mean, they get probably two more teams in the playoff when they maybe or maybe not have one apiece in the 12
I was going to say 2 years ago, the Big 12 got one with Arizona State. Last year, they got one with Texas Tech. 2 years ago, the ACC got SMU. I think that was the only one, right? Yeah, they got one with SMU. Clemson. And Clemson, because Clemson won the conference championship. So 2 years ago, the ACC got two. Last year, they only got one with Miami, and that was a bit of a contentious argument there, getting in over Notre Dame. But you got to value the head-to-head, right? So Miami gets in over Notre Dame. ACC aligned team. They're not in the conference, but they've got a scheduling agreement with the ACC for football. And then obviously the rest of their teams, men's basketball, all the other sports play in the ACC. But football is a independent program there when you look at Notre Dame. So it does make sense that these two conferences are proponents of the 2014 playoff here, whereas the Big Ten, it was kind of their idea. So we know the Big Ten is in support of a 2014 playoff model after getting Ohio State, Indiana, and Penn State 2 years ago. And then last year they got Ohio State again, Indiana again. And then was it only two? But they got more than two in last year's playoff.
Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana.
Oregon, Ohio State. I keep forgetting Oregon there. Oh, that's right. They did get Oregon. So they got 4 2 years ago with Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, Penn State. And then last year they got 3 with Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana as well. So it makes sense that if this is the Big Ten's model, they're in support of it, right? And the SEC's kind of been the lone conference that seems to be pushing back on this with the idea that, hey, we don't really want 24 teams in this thing. And now it seems like other larger bodies across the sport are also saying, hey, maybe 24 is too many. As you look at it here, Jim Phillips, I just had it pulled up here, so I do apologize. Yes, Jim Phillips says ESPN officials have been pretty clear that they want the playoff to remain at 12 teams. And if it does expand, do not go beyond 16 when you look at the broadcasting giant here for the college football playoff.
Which makes sense because that cuts into all their other broadcast needs that they for the other sports. I mean, you'll have hockey going on, you'll have basketball going on, and if these games are played on, weeknights or some weekends, Sundays, Mondays, Wednesdays, that eats into that time, and those tend to pay the bills more than college football.
They do, and it even eats into the NFL, right? Because ESPN does get some broadcasts in the NFL playoffs. So if you're rolling these things into early January, mid-January, or with the national championship being January 25th this year, if you're rolling into late January, you're now eating into what ESPN could be making off of NFL games, or you're competing with NFL games on Fox or CBS when you look at the NFL playoffs there as well. So it does make sense that ESPN kind of wants this thing to be a little bit more limited compared to what it seems like the AFCA, the American Football Coaches Association wants. They were the ones that kind of announced their support, that really kind of got the ball rolling on this 2014 playoff idea. But Jackson, doing a little bit of digging here as well, ESPN's broadcasting rights. So ESPN, for those that don't know, is the sole proponent, the sole provider, the sole broadcast partner of the college football playoff. That's why the playoff selection show every Tuesday night in November is on ESPN. It's why Selection Sundays on ESPN with all their interviews with all the playoff coaches as well. And then they broadcast all of the college football playoff games. They have started to sub-license some of these games to TNT as well. ESPN's broadcasting deal with the college football playoff only covers up to 14 teams. If it goes anything beyond 14, then ESPN is going to have to do one of two things. They're either going to have to pony up more money, pay that out to the broadcasting rights for some of these conferences and the college football playoff as well, or that then opens the door a little bit for another broadcast partner for the college football playoff. We would assume it would be Fox, because ESPN and Fox are kind of the big two when it comes to college football broadcasting rights. CBS can get involved in there as well, but CBS seems to be leaning more towards the NFL model, trying to get more NFL games on CBS there. So from ESPN's perspective, it does make sense to say, hey, maybe we don't expand this thing beyond our little 12-team model, 24-team model here when you look at that side of things as well here, Jackson.
Exactly. And, I mean, as much as people are talking about, the restructuring of the media rights deals, so that way, for the regular season, that way you get, some SEC games on Fox called by Platt and, maybe sharing some with CBS as well, get a few SEC games back there. But when it comes to playoffs, ESPN owns all of that. That's why at the start of the season, you're seeing the Who's In ads in August, and it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
This is the whole reason why bowl season is the way it is now. It's the whole reason why everybody wants expansion, is because you're broadcasting who's in the playoffs the second kickoff of the regular season happens.
Right.
And it's stupid. Because everybody's just like, oh, well, we're not going to care until the playoffs start. It's stupid.
It is. It's completely stupid. And I've said it, you're devaluing the regular season, right? Because you think about marquee games across the sport and in history, right? You think about, the comeback in Bryant-Denny Stadium in 2010. You think about the prayer at Jordan-Hare, the kick six. I mean, and that's just the SEC in Alabama. Right, you've had these games all over the country.
How many times does the game factored into making whether or not one of those two teams makes the 14 playoff? Like what?
Right.
The whole season should feel like the playoffs.
Yes, the glory days of college football really and truly was the BCS era, right? Where you were so dialed in all the time. Any loss felt like just gut wrenching. And that's the emotion and the pageantry that people loved about college football. The purity of the sport, right? Came with that idea of, hey man, you've got to be damn near perfect. And if you're not, you're probably not going to be able to compete for a national championship. I mean, the BCS had one team win a national the BCS era had one or two teams win a national championship with 2 losses, one of them being LSU.
Right. And that's why I like the 4-team model, because you got to see the 4 best, usually one from each conference, sometimes overlap between one conference. But you got to see the best of the best. You didn't get none of this 3-loss crap. Now, with the 2014 model, you'll see 4-loss teams in the playoffs.
Missouri was 9-3 last year. Probably could have been 8-4 because Bo Prabula went down and they forgot how to complete a forward pass. Missouri was the 24th ranked team last season. Do we think Missouri had any chance of winning a national championship? Do we think, Iowa had any chance of winning a national championship? Yeah, their defense plays a style of ball that, can threaten major opponents like Oregon, like Ohio State. They normally have got some pretty good defenses against those offenses there in the Big Ten. But at any point, did we think Iowa was a national championship contender? I know I'm a big Georgia Tech fan just because I like what Brent Key's doing at that program. I was a massive Haynes King defender with Georgia Tech there just because you love the way he plays ball, goes out there and lays it on the line every single play. Georgia Tech, do we think they were a championship contender last year?
I wouldn't say championship contender, but playoff contender, absolutely. I mean, if they
were a playoff contender until they sputtered down the stretch and lost 2 extra ball games. But nowadays, if this 2014 model does get approved, does kind of decide, okay, yeah, we're going to 24 teams, you just completely, those 2 losses from Georgia Tech mean absolutely nothing. It's erased. Georgia Tech is in the college football playoff. And again, as much fun as it is to watch a guy like Haynes King play college football, watch Jamal Haynes, watch Eric Rivers and that very prolific Georgia Tech offense, the number 1 offense in the number 1 offense in the Power 4. Because of some of those late game struggles, they had the number 1 offense all season long, but they sputtered down the stretch. And so I think North Texas ended up with the number 1 offense when you look at the entirety of Division I FBS. But even still, Georgia Tech was a really fun story last year. But it was a fun story because I think it just reflected what the purity of the game was. Hey, this is a really fun team to watch. They've got such a prolific offense. They don't really play defense, but, who needs defense when you're scoring 42 a game, 49 a game on the back of Haynes King, who, again, we know the story of Haynes King and what happened in that matchup against Georgia in that 9 overtime game. Came in, couldn't even throw a football, was not doing too hot coming into that week. On Wednesday of that week where they got to go play Georgia, the eventual 9 overtime game. No, it wasn't 9. What was it? It was like 7 overtimes against Georgia. Just shot for shot in overtime 8, excuse me. There's been Penn State and Illinois went to 9 overtimes a couple of years ago. LSU and Texas A&M went to 7 back in the old overtime model. So, okay, Georgia and Georgia Tech went to 8 overtimes. Haynes King comes in on Tuesday, can't even throw a ball. And then Wednesday, he goes up there and he's just ripping dimes 70 yards down the field. And we're like, I don't know how he's doing this, but we're going to roll Haynes King out there and we're going to go try and win a football game and ruin Georgia's year. Ended up not happening, but still, it was a fun football game. But those games mean a little bit less when you're watching them in the moment if you expand to a 2014 playoff model. And we want the college football regular season to mean something, right? I mean, based in our coverage area here in the Southeast, we cover Alabama on written online, but we also cover all of the SEC. So in our coverage area here, Jackson, we don't really care about the NBA, right? The MLB, okay, it's fine. The Braves are 3 hours down the road in Atlanta, but those regular seasons are watered down because you're playing 82 games in the NBA. You're playing 162 in the MLB. I really couldn't give a rat's ass if Atlanta goes out and loses to the Dodgers in in April or May, right? I couldn't care less if Atlanta goes out and loses in April or May. I start to care about the Atlanta Braves when we get to September, when we get into October, when you get to the playoff baseball era or range there, the NBA. I'm a Miami Heat fan. I guess if you're living in Alabama and you do care about the NBA, you're probably an Atlanta Hawks or New Orleans Pelicans fan.
Or Grizzlies fan.
Or Memphis Grizzlies as well there, yeah. I couldn't give a rat's ass if Miami loses in December to the Lakers. I don't care if they lose in January to the Hornets or not the Falcons, the Hawks or the Magic. I don't care because it's 1 out of 82. But what makes college football so valuable is the fact that you're living and dying with every possession because you get 12 regular season games for a chance to go compete for a national championship. And if you're good enough, you're playing 13 games with your conference championship going into a postseason that in the BCS model, they just decided, all right, these are the top 2 teams. We're going to roll those 2 out to wherever the national championship's going to be. They're going to go play. Everybody else gets a bowl game. In the 4-team era, hey, we're going to go play our 4 best teams. Like Jackson mentioned, it typically was 1 team from every Power 4 conference, maybe a couple of other teams sprinkled in there as well. You look at the last year of the 4-team era, right? You had an undefeated Big Ten champion in Michigan, an undefeated Pac-12 champion in Washington. You had a 1-loss Big 12 champion in Texas and a 1-loss SEC champion in Alabama. And then, oh, by the way, your 5th-ranked team was an undefeated ACC champion that if Jordan Travis doesn't go down, Alabama's not in. The ACC champion is in.
And your 6th-ranked team was a 1-loss conference runner-up who was number 1 for the past 2 years straight.
Hadn't lost since 2021. And that was your number 6 team. After a 3-point loss to Alabama in the SEC championship. So, I mean, it created a lot more value and it created a lot more energy and excitement, right? Because you think about it here, all right, and you saw it in back-to-back years where you go from, all right, the 4-team era, who gets that last spot? Is it the SEC champion Alabama? Is it the undefeated ACC champion with the 3rd-string quarterback in Florida State? Or is it the team that ran the table and then just so happened to go lose a 1-score ball game to the SEC champion? Who is going to get that spot? And there was a lot of hype, a lot of drama, a lot of energy around that playoff selection. The next year, you had SMU, a 2-loss team that lost their conference championship game, didn't have the best strength of schedule, and a 3-loss Alabama team that, again, if they can handle their business on the road in Nashville against Vanderbilt, or if they could field some version of an offense in Knoxville against Tennessee, or if they just don't go out and crap the bed against Oklahoma, they're probably in regardless there. The energy and the hype and the excitement, at least to me, around the SMU-Alabama debate was nowhere near the level of what it was when it was Alabama, Florida State, and Georgia just 1 year prior, because it all got watered down when you look at the expansion to the 12-team playoff. And so now, if you're a college football purist, you want something to revitalize bowl season, right? Because I love bowl season. It's a ton of fun. You get a lot of matchups that you normally probably aren't going to get. I hate that players are, opting out, but I get it because NFL, right? Do you want to go play in a bowl game that we've now all deemed as meaningless? Do you want to go play in a quote-unquote meaningless bowl game for a chance to, eat a live mascot of a Pop-Tart or have Cheez-Its dumped on you, or you get to pour mayonnaise on your head coach? Or would you rather train for the NFL, prepare for the combine, prepare for the draft, and end up being a top 50 pick where you're making life-changing money? So I get it from a player standpoint. I really do get it from a player standpoint at this point. But yes, the ACC and the Big 12 have now come out in public support of a 24-team college football playoff. Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, and Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC. You saw the tweet from Ross Dellinger a couple of moments ago. I'll throw that back up on the screen here for those that are watching on YouTube there. Official report from Ross Dellinger. Jim Phillips says ESPN officials have been pretty clear that they want the playoff to remain at 12, and if it does expand, not beyond 16 teams. So this feels dirty. It feels almost sacrilegious, but I agree with the television network. That's a weird thing to say, but I agree with ESPN on something for once. Yes, this thing should not expand. And if it does, it doesn't need to go beyond 16 teams, because you are going to utterly water down the most important, the most fun, the most crucial regular season in American sports is what it feels like at this point. Because again, college basketball, it doesn't draw the same eyes that college football does, but it draws, similar eyes to what the NBA is doing because you're playing less regular season games, because more of those games matter, even with the conference tournaments there in early March as you get ready for March Madness. College football is the second most watched sport in the country right now. It does better numbers than the NBA. It does better numbers than the MLB, NHL. Any other collegiate sport is dwarfed in comparison to what the numbers college football does. And the only thing that beats out college football is the NFL. And by the way, you're starting to see marquee college football games, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, Miami, Notre Dame, Miami. Alabama, Georgia in the regular season, Jackson, garnered better numbers than a couple of NFL games did. Now, I understand, again, Bama, Georgia was national television. It was on ABC. You didn't even need cable. If you just got the regular 3 TV channels, you got to see Alabama and Georgia on ABC during the regular season. But it was starting to, marquee college football games, new matchups, new teams, things like that. They're drawing better eyes than certain NFL games are, which, again, I understand are regionally kind of locked in. But even still, you look at it, and college football's got a really good thing going on, and it seems like the people in charge of it are doing everything that they possibly can do to just ruin and dilute what is, in my opinion, one of the greatest sports, one of the greatest regular seasons in the United States of America. We went way too long in that first segment, so I do apologize. We'll go ahead and take this break because we do got to pay some bills here. And on the other side, we agreed with ESPN on the idea of, hey, stop expanding. Keep it at 12, maybe go to 16 if you have to, but none of this 24 nonsense. So we're agreeing with ESPN for the first time in what feels like forever. Let's talk a little more about ESPN. As they have announced their first 2 locations for the upcoming College Game Day, the first 2 weeks, they know where they're going for College Game Day. Where else should they go here when you look at ESPN's College Game Day? Because you've got marquee games across the sport that are going to be taking place. Who should ESPN go spotlight? We'll talk about it on the other side as we're off and rolling here on the Deep South College Football Show on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
6829. That's 800-923-6829. What do you have to lose? Call 800-923-6829. Again, 800-923-6829.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. Keep things dry here through the rest of the week, and that's going to linger on into the weekend, as we'll see temperatures mostly in the 80s for daytime highs. 83 here this afternoon with sunshine, 56 tonight. High tomorrow, 80, and 84 on Friday with sunshine in the forecast. A look ahead to the weekend, bone dry, maybe a little slight bump up in the humidity. 87 Saturday, 88 on Sunday. Richard DeWething at the Weather Channel for Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
It's 79 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Alabama Crimson Tide lives right here.
Down to the pylon. Touchdown, Alabama.
On Tide 100.9.
Welcome back into the Deep South College Football Show here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. In the last segment here, we actually agreed with ESPN, which, again, feels like a dirty sentence to say, but I actually agree with them. You don't need to expand this thing to 24 teams. Now, ESPN's reasoning for it is a little bit skewed, right? It's skewed in favor of the television broadcasting giant there, as ESPN's broadcast rights for the college football playoff go for up to 14 teams, right? So they currently control all of the broadcasting for the college football playoff in the 12-team model, and it goes up to 14 as well. It's in their agreement there. But if it expands beyond 14 teams to 16 or 24 or even 20, I guess, if that's something that could be in the cards there, it changes. They do not control the broadcast rights for those extra games. So even though you may have watched, Tulane or Ole Miss or Oregon and James Madison on TNT, that's because it was sub-licensed to that television network from ESPN. So ESPN, even though you didn't watch it on ESPN or ABC, Disney, because they own those networks. The Mouse got the money from it, though. So ESPN's reasoning for it is strictly monetary. They want to continue to control the college football playoff broadcasting. The selection show on Tuesday nights during the final month of the season, Selection Sunday, the Sunday after conference championship games, as well as ESPN wants to control the licensing and the broadcasting for all of the college football playoff games. It's like when you're in grade school, right, where you've got a math equation and you have no idea what you're doing, but you try and figure it out. You try and work through the process and you get the right answer. So you go show your teacher and you say, hey, look, I got the right answer on my paper here. And the teacher goes, you got the right answer, but you went about it the wrong way. You used the wrong equation, but you still came out to the right answer. It's kind of what it looks like ESPN is doing right here. They're using the wrong equation in terms of broadcasting, licensing, and money, but they're coming to the correct result in that we don't need expansion. And if we do expand, don't go beyond 16 teams. So again, right answer, wrong equation from ESPN. We agree with the result. We don't want this thing to expand we don't want it to expand at all, much less to 24. But if it does expand, I think 16 is probably that right number there. So I guess we'll see how much power ESPN really holds in the world of college football, because if they get what they want, this thing will stay at 12 or at most expand to 16. And if ESPN doesn't control college football, then this thing will go to 24. In the event that it does go beyond the ESPN number of 14 or 16 there, one of two things can happen. Either ESPN will have to shell out more money to continue to control the broadcasting of the college football playoff, or another media entity, whether that be Fox or CBS or NBC or whatever, can fork up a little bit of money and start to eat into what ESPN is getting off the college football playoff. So if expansion does happen, it kind of cracks open that door a little bit for somebody to kind of start to eat away at the contract money that ESPN is getting from the college football playoff. So we'll see. ESPN, again, right decision, wrong equation when you look at ESPN there. So we went way too long in that first segment, so we'll go take another break here, pay some more bills on the other side. We mentioned College Game Day. They're heading to Baton Rouge for week one, Clemson against LSU. Dabo Swinney, Lane Kiffin's debut as the LSU head football coach. What will that matchup look like? Where are they going in week two? And where else should they go when you look at the 2026 college football season? We'll talk about it on the other side. Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC, the Deep South College Football Show. Big thanks to, if you're checking us out on YouTube, the Facebook live stream, the X account as well. We greatly appreciate it.
Get tickets now at PearlRiverResort.com. Don't miss Drew Hill.
What does it mean to advertise and do your marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa? Melissa started her business in 2014. What would you say to someone considering Town Square Media Tuscaloosa?
My experience with Town Square Media has been awesome, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think that this is the first time in my marketing experience that I've been able to see my return on investment. I would definitely say in the past that has not been the case. In this, I like knowing that that's 100%. A lot of the marketing we've done has been radio. You guys have so much more to offer than that, whether it's, websites, from targeted marketing to radio. You are kind of a one-stop shop, and it makes doing marketing so much easier. So I would definitely recommend it.
For more info,
6829. That's 800-923-6829. What do you have to lose? Call 800-923-6829. Again, 800-923-6829.
Never miss a moment of the action. Download the free Tide 100.9 app today.
We already know where ESPN's College Game Day is heading for the first 2 weeks of the season. Week one, they're heading to Baton Rouge, Louisiana for Lane Kiffin's debut as the LSU Tigers head football coach in their matchup against Clemson and Dabo Swinney. And in week two, Jackson, what might be the most anticipated game of the season here, Ohio State at Texas. And we already know the kickoff times for both of these games as well. Week one in Baton Rouge, Clemson at LSU. night game, 6:30 on ABC. Week 2, Ohio State at Texas, a rematch of the 1-2 game from week 1 of last season. Took place at noon in Columbus, Ohio a season ago. Ohio State, welcome to the trenches. You get DKR Memorial Stadium at 6:30 p.m. Central Time in Austin, Texas here. Going to be a great slate of games there when you look at those two. Week 1, you don't have the best slate of games here when you look at the first weekend of the college football schedule. Normally, you've got all these marquee games, marquee matchups, but really and truly in week 1, there's not a ton of those on the schedule here. I'm looking here at the schedule. Notre Dame, Wisconsin, that's on Sunday. Louisville, Ole Miss, that's also on Sunday. Monday night, you've got SMU and Florida State, Labor Day night. Looking at the rest of these matchups here, Clemson at LSU, Baylor versus Auburn. I guess those are probably the two quote-unquote biggest games of opening weekend. I'm looking at it here. Yeah, you don't have many good matchups outside of that there. Actually, you don't really have any good matchups outside of that there, at least for week 1. Miami at Stanford could be a fun one, but that's going to be on Friday night as well there. So I really, Clemson is a program that has a recent enough history of being a successful program. 2 national championships in 2016 and 2018, made the college football playoff 2 seasons ago. Perennial ACC contenders there when you look at the Clemson Tigers. Last season was kind of a bit of a fall off for Clemson there, but LSU is the hot button team this offseason, right? They always have the talent. They're always expected to be really well. Seems like they're always in that 10 to 15 range in the preseason polls, which don't mean jack squat, but they're there. 10 to 15 range in the preseason polls here. And now you've got the drama of Lane Kiffin bringing in all this talent via the transfer portal as well. His first season in Baton Rouge, and it felt like Jackson late in the year after LSU had fired Brian Kelly, it was basically just, hey, Nick Saban, go out there and pitch LSU as the number 1 job in the country to Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin even said he talked with Nick Saban, should he take the LSU job or not. Hindsight, we now know that Lane Kiffin took the LSU job, and he's throwing shots at everybody that he can, basically, on his way out of the door there in Oxford, Mississippi. But Clemson at LSU, going to be that week 1 matchup there. Sam Leavitt versus, we assume, Christopher Vezina for Clemson. He was the backup to Cade Klubnik for the last couple of seasons there. Former highly rated prospect at quarterback there. Clemson's got some talent at wide receiver. Bryant Wesco's another really good guy that I would keep an eye on if you're looking for a wide receiver in this 2027 NFL draft. You may not be high enough to go get a Cam Coleman or a Jeremiah Smith, but if you're sitting in the 20s, Bryant Wesco, Ryan Coleman-Williams could be hanging around there later in the first round. So I've got no issue with where ESPN's College Game Day is heading when you look at these first 2 weeks of the season here, Jackson.
No, I agree. I think those are really the only 2 matchups that you can or should take if you're College Game Day anyway. So, good job.
All right, week 2, you've also got Oklahoma at Michigan, but as fun as that game will be, that game's going to be on Big Noon kickoff. But as fun as that game's going to be, I don't think it overtakes Ohio State at Texas, right? I mean, Michigan is a team that has a new head coach, Kyle Whittingham. Oklahoma's trying to make the college football playoff again, but Ohio State and Texas, I mean, if you look at the SP Plus from ESPN's Bill Conley there, I know we're citing ESPN a lot today, but I do like the SP Plus model there. Ohio State's number 1, Texas is number, 4 or 5, and so you've got effectively a guaranteed top 5 matchup in Texas and Ohio State.
Yeah, and outside of Oklahoma and Michigan, they're probably the 2 biggest brands in college football. So if you want viewership, there you go.
Yeah, and it also just helps ESPN here that they can say, hey, stay on our TV network, stay on our channel here, stay on ABC, because you'll get Ohio State and Texas a little bit later in the day there. So it benefits ESPN when they go to games that they are broadcasting, and they will be broadcasting Ohio State and Texas there. Going to be a lot of fun. Last year's matchup garnered a lot of the hype in week number 1, just because, again, it was the big game. It was also Lee Corso's final College Game Day there, picking Brutus to beat Texas, or picking Ohio State and Brutus to beat Texas there, and Ohio State got the job done. But last year's game felt really kind of ugly, right? Really big defensive game. A lot of struggles from first-year starters and Arch Manning and Julian Sayin. A lot of ugly passes coming out of that game. It feels like last year's game garnered the hype, but maybe didn't deliver. I don't know that this year's game is going to garner the hype that last year's did, because this probably is not 1 versus 2. But I think this year's game between Ohio State and Texas is probably going to be a better matchup. You've got experience between Julian Sand and Arch Manning now, 2 full seasons of starting experience between the two of them. Cam Coleman versus Jeremiah Smith, Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers versus Bo Jackson. A lot of elite defensive talent on both sides of the ball, although Ohio State's got to replace Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, and Caleb Downs. It feels like to me last year's matchup got the hype. This year's matchup will deliver the better game.
I agree. I think this will be probably the better game. I mean, you're playing, I was about to go into the weather conditions, but it's probably similar to what it was. Maybe it'll definitely be hotter, but
it'll be more humid. But I think that game being at night, or at least later in the evening, by the time you get to the fourth quarter, it will be a quote-unquote night game. It'll be a lot more humid, but at the same time, I think it'll be a really fun one between Texas and Ohio State there in week number 2. They did not announce the week 3 location. But unless you've been living under a rock, and if you have been, we appreciate you coming out from under the rock to listen to the show and watch the show. But unless you've been living under a rock, you pretty much already know where they're going to go in week number 3. Ole Miss hosts LSU that weekend in week 3. They're going to go to Oxford, Mississippi. The Lane Kiffin return to Oxford, the just toxicity levels that have been coming out of that game. I mean, you're going to need heightened levels of security. Jackson, did you go to the Alabama-Georgia game when the president was in town? You did. So you remember what the security was like in and around that game. I almost wonder if this game between LSU and Ole Miss could be at an even higher level of security than when a sitting president comes to town.
Yeah, but I mean, do we really? I wouldn't put it past any crazy college football fan, but do we really think somebody's going to whip out a rifle and try to shoot Lane Kiffin?
I would say no, but again, you can't really put it past college football fans. I mean, like a dude at Alabama poisoned a tree because they put a jersey on Bear Bryant's statue. Like it feels. I mean, we've had, granted, again, quoting the Iron Bowl here.
They also rolled Toomer's corner when he died. So
they did. They rolled Toomer's corner when he died. Didn't they roll Toomer's corner when Nick Saban retired too? Yeah, they did. So I mean, the rivalries in college football are just unprecedented. It's a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but people take these things way too seriously here. I mean, hell, the Iron Bowl's had people killed. We've had people shoot one another in their homes over the Iron Bowl. And that's not even a quote unquote toxic matchup, right? I mean, yes, they don't like each other, obviously. They hate each other, but I would argue Tennessee, Alabama is a little bit more toxic. The game is probably more toxic from a fan base perspective.
LSU-Bama is definitely more toxic.
LSU-Bama's a lot more toxic. So, I mean, you get Ole Miss, LSU, you kind of get that rivalry in there with LSU. If you're Ole Miss with the Magnolia Bowl, I wouldn't put it past somebody to try and do something. So I imagine there will be a heightened level of security for that game.
I bet there will be a ton of golf balls thrown Lane Kiffin's way in that stadium.
Oh, there's got to be. There's got to be a bunch of golf balls thrown here. So, all right, so we know what's going to happen in week 3. We pretty much know that, hey, it's going to be LSU and Ole Miss. What about week 4, though? Because the first month of the season here, we get a lot of these hyped up matchups here. Where do they go in week 4? Because now you're starting to get into conference play for some of these teams here. They're not going to go to Tuscaloosa for South Carolina as close as those games have been. I don't think they would go to Auburn for the matchup with Vandy, even though Vandy's gotten the better of them the last couple of years. You just were at Ole Miss, so I highly doubt you're going to go to Ole Miss at Florida. What about Oklahoma and Georgia? Second ever matchup between the Sooners and the Bulldogs there, coming in Athens, Georgia in week number 4. Brent Venables, Kirby Smart, John Mateer, Gunnar Stockton. Georgia and Oklahoma could both theoretically be undefeated going into that game if Oklahoma can handle their business on the road. Georgia doesn't play anybody with a pulse earlier than that at that point in the season.
I think that's probably one of the circled games that they're looking at. I know there's
You've also got you've got Oregon at USC right. a little bit later that day as well. Oregon and USC don't play anybody with a pulse prior to that matchup there. USC gets San Jose State, Fresno State, Louisiana, Rutgers before they play Oregon. So I guess Greg Schiano and the Scarlet Knights have a chance to do something really funny. Oregon gets Boise State at Oklahoma State. Portland State, didn't even know that they had a football team before they go to USC. So, I mean, feels like they're probably going to Athens or Los Angeles for week number 4 there.
I would agree.
Looking at other matchups there in week number 4, Illinois at Ohio State could be maybe a sneaky one. Illinois has been pretty good the last couple of years. You know they want to get a chance to go see Ohio State, as many chances as they can because of how good the Buckeyes are. Outside of that, there's really nothing worth their salt at that point there. Clemson at Cal on Friday, September 25th. That'll be an interesting one to watch.
I wouldn't be surprised if they go Oregon, USC, because week 6 you have Bama, Georgia.
That is
unless
true.
They want to double up on Georgia after doubling up on LSU.
I mean, we've seen them do it before.
Yeah. I mean, the SEC homerism hate that'll be thrown their way like it was last year won't stop. So,
no, it would not stop. But I mean, looking at it there, I think they would end up going again. We got to see the season play out and see where things end up there. But I think, probably USC and Oregon would be the matchup that they want to go to because they want to save that trip, or they want to save Georgia for the Alabama game should both Georgia and Bama be undefeated going into it.
Right, but you also don't have another big matchup between the Hedges and Sanford for them to go back to. And would you want to see Oklahoma's first ever trip to Athens?
It's a good question. Because Oklahoma, like you said, Oklahoma's never been between the Hedges. You don't have another marquee home game for Georgia to go see at that point. It could be a possibility. It could be a possibility. You look at Georgia's schedule there.
Because they play at Ole Miss, at Alabama.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, that's all
Florida,
they've got worthwhile.
Georgia Tech or neutral site.
Yeah, Florida, Georgia Tech or neutral site. So, yeah, I mean, if they do want to go between the Hedges next season, then it would be that matchup with Oklahoma. You get the Big Ten matchups there with USC and Oregon coming up here as well. So we'll take a break, wrap up the loose ends on the other side, and get you ready for the game with Ryan Fowler on the radio side of things here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC here on the Deep South College Football Show.
West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
Governor Ivey has set August the 11th for special elections in congressional districts 1, 2, 6, and 7. However, since next Tuesday's primary ballots are already printed, Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen tells what will happen to those votes.
Votes for those races will be void for purposes of determining the party nominee.
All other votes will count Tuesday. A male suspect is in custody after he shot and killed a nurse.
I'm aboard, Captain. But one thing that is greener is the money you could save when you bundle your RV, boat, or motorcycle with your home or auto with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. Keep things dry here through the rest of the week, and that's going to linger on into the weekend. As we'll see temperatures mostly in the 80s for daytime highs. 83 here this afternoon with sunshine. 56 tonight. High tomorrow at 80 and 84 on Friday with sunshine in the forecast. A look ahead to the weekend. Bone dry, maybe a little slight bump up in the humidity. 87 Saturday, 88 on Sunday. Richard Weathering at the Weather Channel for Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
It's 79 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Stay up to date with the Crimson Tide. Local high school sports and Bama in the pros right here on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back into the Deep South College Football Show. Just got a couple of minutes left here on the program. We're talking at college game day locations, i.e. what is the marquee game of the week that we think college game day could go to. Week 5 is another one that's got a lot of great matchups there. Vandy's going to Georgia. Alabama's going to go to Mississippi State for the first time since, 2023. Florida's going to Missouri. Could that be the return of Ahmad Hardy? We don't know. Auburn's going to Rocky Top. You've got the rivalry game between Arkansas and Texas A&M, but I think this is finally because you can make a justifiable reason for college game day to go to SEC games throughout the first, month and a half of the season. But I think this is finally when they maybe venture outside of the SEC and the Big Ten as a whole You've got Miami at Clemson here on this week. Miami, I was going to say reigning ACC champion, but not really because they didn't play in the conference championship game. Lost to Indiana in the national championship there. Clemson, if they can somehow beat LSU to start the season, now you're looking at Clemson's schedule and saying, all right, Georgia Southern, North Carolina, you got that tricky game at Cal on that Friday night the week before. But if you can get out of that, stretch as a one-loss or undefeated Clemson team, suddenly it does make Clemson a viable option there to host College Game Day. Miami doesn't have much of a slate there either. At Stanford on Friday night to open the season, Florida A&M at Wake Forest and Central Michigan. Miami's, if you want to call it tough stretch, comes after that with road trip to Clemson, home against Florida State, home against Pitt, at North Carolina, and at Notre Dame. When you look at the Miami Hurricanes schedule here, you've also got Notre Dame at North Carolina. I know they were high on Bill Belichick last season when they were talking about College Game Day, ESPN, and things like that. Could they go to Chapel Hill if North Carolina is at least a decent roster here? North Carolina's got a tough stretch of the season early there. Well, not tough, but they play Clemson prior to their matchup with Notre Dame. So TCU, East Tennessee State, and then at Clemson. But again, you come out of that 2-1, 3-0, and I think Notre Dame with their light schedule, we'll put it nicely, easier schedule to start the season, could be a viable option there when you look at College Game Day. You've also got ACC Virginia at Florida State. Again, Virginia beat Florida State last season there again, and there's not really anything much else worthwhile, I would say, at this point from a College Game Day perspective. Now, you've got a bunch of entertaining games that I think could be a lot of fun. Louisville at NC State could be a trap game for the Cardinals there. Ohio State at Iowa. We mentioned Iowa earlier in the show, kind of being a team that always plays really, really tough defense, but seems to never be able to field an offense to save their life. Washington at USC, Jada Mayava versus Damon Williams at quarterback, Lincoln Riley and Jed Fish coaching those two programs there. If they choose one of those matchups, College Game Day does, this could be a week that you say, you know what, maybe I don't tune into College Game Day. Maybe I decide, you know what, I'm going to go mow some grass this morning. I'm going to go get things ready for my team's game here later in the day. And then you roll on into week 6. Is it anybody but Bama at Georgia? Jackson says no. What about Red River? Because that's that week as well. You got Bama, Georgia, and Red River as well in the same day.
You don't want to see a rematch, maybe even see Keelan Russell, what he can do against a Kirby Smart defense?
I think you would want to see that. And Red River's also got the history of being played at 2:30, so you've almost guaranteed Alabama, Georgia being that 6:30 game on ABC.
And then also both Oklahoma and Texas. Texas could have one loss right there after the Ohio State game.
Oklahoma could have two. When you look at Michigan and Georgia in that matchup there, whereas Georgia and Alabama, I don't think are anything less than one loss or undefeated at that point in the season there. So we'll see. We are 115 days away from Alabama football. We're 100, because the season starts a week earlier than that. So I guess we are 108 days away from the start of the college football season. So that'll do it for us today on the